Welcome to another episode of the MiamiHal Real Estate Show. As you can see, I have a lot of real estate around me today. It's just me and you. We're going to have some fun. Mike's behind it, the controls. We're going to try something new. So if it doesn't go perfectly, it's okay. But a lot of times I am asked, how do I sell my home and do it successfully? In fact, I've done it as a seminar for many, many years. Before the pandemic, we did it live. I brought in a lot of special guests that had expertise in different areas. And you guys today are going to get a small version of that seminar. So this is how to sell your home successfully. Mike, you can go right into that second shot. And typically, as I told you, people will sit down at this seminar. We've got a bunch of people in front of the room, and they include an appraiser, a mortgage person, a title agent. We even get inspectors, and I always, besides me, get at least one other realtor to be at the front of the room so that they get perspective as to what's really going on. So next slide, please. The seminar is really set up as a Q&A, and I try to move things along quickly because ultimately the people in the room want to drive to their questions. And so we're obviously not going to have a perfect opportunity for that, but remember, on your social media platforms, you've got that empty box. Fill it up with questions, and I'll jump in and try to take care of those questions as we move along. Next slide. So everybody asks me, I'm an agent, how do I sell my home successfully? And I know in the back of their head, what they're really doing is asking the question whether or not they can do that themselves and try to save 6%. That's the big number, right? Everybody wants to save money. So let's talk about why people can try to do that themselves or not. Let's move on with the next slide. So you probably, if you're showing up to the seminar, realize that you shouldn't be doing this. And it's going to talk to you in the next couple of slides as to why. Go ahead. So if you're out to buy a very nice piece of jewelry or some clothing, and you walk into Marshall's versus walking into Nordstrom or Saks Fifth Avenue, there's a difference, right? And you know what you're going to pay, and you know what kind of quality you're going to have in the people that are trying to sell you that particular piece of clothing or apparatus, right? And there's a difference between, in real estate, a realtor selling your home and you having a yard sale out in front with just junk all over the yard. That's what it's perceived as for potential buyers. Go ahead, let's move along. So there's a bunch of home seller mistakes. We're going to get along to those, but it's not like I'm the first one to tell you this. Here's a wonderful slide which appears all over the place, and it tells you 7 common mistakes, but I can come up with 20 of them. Move along, please. So let's talk about the real estate journey. What motivates you is the way that you should sell your home. Some people are motivated only by the money factor. Today, it's pretty easy to sell your home for a lot of money. But at other times, more normal times, you might have to move because of a job change or a family situation. And so your motivation really is time, not money. And so you really have to recognize this as part of the business of selling your home and do it the right way. Motivation, regardless of what yours is not going to change the price of what that home is on the open market. Next slide. Okay, so the broad strokes of selling your home is to first do your research and figure out what your pricing should be. And then we're going to walk you through marketing. Marketing is incredibly important. There's so much noise out there today that you have to really focus in on how you intend to sell your home and basically have that message rise above the crowd. Showings, okay? Showing your home is your opportunity to put your home on a stage and to really highlight what is available between your home and what makes it special. And I have to tell you, a professional doing a showing is far different than you walking somebody through your home. And then, of course, at some point, somebody's going to become interested enough to put in an offer for your home. And so negotiations become the next and critically important step to being successful and ultimately closing. Negotiations is a full-time job. You have to understand on how to read both your prospective buyer, the agent that they are working with, and the team around them. Believe it or not, part of the negotiation could be with the lender that they're planning on using to purchase the home. And then, of course, you get into the contract details and contingencies, making sure that you're not backing yourself into a corner as a seller, and also making sure that it's fair to the buyer, because an unfair contract ultimately is going to end up in disaster rather than you getting paid. And then you get to closing, which is a whole nother level. And we probably won't get to that in the half hour that we have today. Let's move on. So what is your home value and what really derives this number? So first of all, there's a list price. And the idea of the list price is really how to attract somebody in the audience that is in your neighborhood looking to buy compared to your competition. It is not the number that ultimately you should expect your property to close at. Now, we're in special times right now. A lot of things are closing above list price, and that's okay. But overall, the measure is what you want to do is price typically just above what the property is truly worth to attract people. If you were, for example, you've got a $500,000 house and you list for $600,000, you can imagine people are going to see right away that you're way out of the market in the way of pricing, and they won't even come and look at your listing on the internet rather than they won't even look at it on the internet, and certainly won't come to see your house in person. Let's move on. So what's our goal? The goal ultimately in pricing is to get a price on that contract that is also going to appraise. Ultimately, in almost every sales contract, there is either a lender who is going to require an appraisal, or that buyer paying cash still wants to make sure they're not overpaying. So at some point in the process, you have an appraiser. And that appraiser looks at the property far differently than you as a seller or the buyer as a buyer. And we're going to talk in a little detail there. And let's move along to the next slide for that. Here's a whole bunch of stuff which I want you to read off the screen. But as I talk, understand that in an appraiser's eyes, a watertight roof is a watertight roof. And what do I mean by this? You as a seller or them as a buyer might really value a metal roof, but a metal roof that is watertight is equal to a standard shingle roof in the eyes of an appraiser. There's no significant difference, and that appraiser is not going to just add a bunch of zeros to the end of their appraisal simply because you've got a special roof. The same thing kind of goes for all the other amenities in the house. Now, certainly, an appraiser does go through and ultimately grades the house in its finishes and how new those finishes are, but they don't say this particular range and microwave are super special and therefore I'm going to add $2,000. They say the kitchen is upgraded versus a standard kitchen, and the variance in the allowance or disallowance of additional funds is not nearly as much as what a typical buyer and seller would expect. Let's move on to the next slide. So the other thing is people banter around the phrase appraiser and appraisals, and there are far different versions of an appraisal that you should be aware of. So first of all, you all pay taxes, right? If you own a home, you're paying taxes at the end of the year. It's a property tax, and it is based upon what is quote unquote an appraisal. That appraisal is nothing close to what a market value appraisal truly is. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. I actually had the county appraiser here on a prior show. You can go back and look at that. But ultimately, what we're doing on selling a home or purchasing a home is its own little microcosm, and it captures right now what the market would pay for that home. It has nothing to do with your taxes. And there's also appraisals that can be done for insurance purposes and a number of other factors. Again, these are different types of appraisals than an appraisal done for the purpose of providing money to close on a home. Next slide. Now, many people come to me and they say, listen, I already know what my house is worth because I've looked it up online. And I have to tell you that the internet is a wonderful place to get information, and it is a far cry from the way that real estate was done 20, 25 years ago because we have the internet. However, I want you to understand that even the best of websites out there are mathematical formulas that derive value for your home. And typically what they're ultimately coming to is the price per square foot. That software, that wonderful software, has never stepped foot in your house. They haven't even stepped foot into the neighborhood. So they don't know where your house is, may or may not hear the train tracks that are a couple blocks away. They don't know if this is a cut through street. They don't know if your roof is new, old, if your plumbing is in good shape. They don't know a lot of the factors that ultimately come out to a proper sales price for your home. And in the slide, I've kind of highlighted this is a Zillow automated valuation model. And they even on their own website say they are not particularly accurate when it comes down to the final sales price. They're really good at math, but they're not good at giving you the right number. That's what I'm really coming down to say. Next slide. So we are in South Florida. There are very specific issues that are unique to this area that ultimately are going to either assist or hold you back from getting a sale done. And today's hot button issues are about roofs and about cast iron plumbing. Now, everybody understands what a roof is. And we had a catastrophic hurricane, Hurricane Andrew, and this is many, many years ago. So nowadays, any roof that was replaced after Andrew is also at an age limit where most insurers are not going to even provide insurance to the new buyer. You may have insurance. That's essentially grandfathered in. But that new buyer must have insurance. And so if they can't get insurance, that's going to gum up the works. When it comes to cast iron plumbing, a lot of people don't understand this, but you have your fresh water coming into the sinks and showers, etc. This is not what I'm talking about. Cast iron plumbing is the wastewater. So once things go down the drain, where do they go and how do they get there? Up until approximately 1974, there was cast iron that was the pipe that was used. And unfortunately, we didn't know it at the time. Cast iron pipes reacts very poorly to the type of soil we have here in South Florida. And so over the years, this cast iron essentially internally fractures and rusts and does some really nasty things that if you have a 3-inch diameter pipe, by the way, most cast iron is 2 inches. If that starts to rust and deteriorate, it actually shrinks the interior capacity of that pipe, and it also starts to leak underneath. When you leak underneath the pipe, the soil underneath erodes away over the years, and then that pipe has nothing to basically support itself with, and it breaks through. So these are incredibly important, and most buyers are going to look very critically at those two issues. And there's one other area, just wind protection. You might imagine trying to protect from future storms. People like to see impact windows or at least shutters or some way to protect the house from wind. Next slide. So a lot of people ask me, I'm about to sell my house and should I upgrade this and upgrade that because I want to get the most money I can for the house. And I'm going to really fly through this. The answer is no. In 99% of the cases, there's absolutely no reason to upgrade. Notice I'm emphasizing the word upgrade anything in the house. If you have something that's broken, it's most likely that I would recommend that you fix it. So if you have a hole in the wall because somebody banged up against it and there's a hole in the wall, fix it, right? Even paint. If the wall is, no holes at all, the wall is integrous, then you don't even want to paint. Why? Because it's very likely the color you choose is not going to be the color that the buyer wants. So why go through the expense? And by the way, the aggravation of having a contractor in your house when the buyer is going to go and make a change anyway. So those are the quick things. Sprucing up, no problem. Your very small amount of money is best utilized with the front and the outside of your house. So if you have a door that looks tired, the front door, you want to take care of that. If your locks and handles on the front door are looking like they're 35 years old, you want to take care of that. And let me tell you, putting up a couple of new bushes and some flowers up front can do wonders for the curb appeal. Next slide. Wow, this one is a 3-slide doozy, and it's really important. We're still talking about pricing of your home. So if you list your price of the home very high compared to what the market value truly is, You may have, look at the steel balls at the bottom of the graphic, some people that are interested because of the neighborhood and the way that the house is described, whatever. But when they see that list price, some of those people, the steel balls, are heading for the doors even before they think about coming out and seeing the house. Now we get into a better situation. The list price is closer to market value, but still a little high. A lot more people are going to be attracted. We talk about bracketing in pricing when I sit down with a couple of people for potentially listing, and we say, listen, the neighborhood sells between this price and this price, no matter whether it's a 3-bedroom place or a 5-bedroom place. This is what all the houses here. People are expecting that the houses will be no more than $700,000. So you can't even list for $701,000 if you expect people to show up and look at the listing. That's kind of what this graph says. But here is the magic. This is when the magic happens. There are people, next slide, please. Okay, and one more, actually. We're a little behind on the slides. Perfect. Mark's doing a great job. So when the list price is very close to the market price, a ton of people are going to show up because they know you're being realistic about how you're approaching the sale of your home. And this will automatically bring people out to your house to actually look at the house and determine. And now we're going to get to the next slide. What it does is it actually creates competition. So you should be aware, no matter how you start out pricing your home and what adjustments you make, it's the beginning that counts. In the first 5 days, when that house is first marketed and put into the MLS and out to all these websites, and your realtor goes and does what they're going to do, or you go out and do what you're going to do, within the first 5 days, your house is out there. It's presented to the world. And after that, no matter what you do, change the color of the outside, have a spotlight on it, I don't care what you do, the interest is going to tail off. I call it the long tail. You can see it right here. And we're on to the next slide. So, taking a little break, we're talking about pricing your home. I've given you a lot of information so far. Here's the quiz that I would give in real time. There are multiple factors here on the slide, and what ultimately determines the value of your home, underscored. Which one would you select? And a lot of people would say, oh, my real estate agent. Really? So you have an agent that comes in and says, I can sell your home for this? First of all, if you hear that from an agent, turn away. The agent does not set the price, nor can they get anything higher than the market's going to bear. What a good agent should tell you, because it's true, is with their efforts, they can get you the top end of market, but they certainly don't determine the value of your home. And out of all this list, it's the lender's appraisal. We talked about that a few slides ago, that ultimately is going to tell you what the house is going to sell for. If you have a contract, again, for $600,000 and the property's worth $550,000, after you're in contract, that appraisal is going to come back and the buyer is going to say, I can't pay more than $550,000 because that's what the appraisal says. So yes, there's some negotiation, but ultimately don't fool yourself by putting a high price and getting a high contract. You're very likely going to be disappointed in the end. Let's move on. So let's talk about some marketing. All right. And I'm doing pretty well with time. Obviously, I'm looking up every once in a while for some questions. Haven't seen them yet, but we'll get there. And ultimately, if you want to see the full presentation, you're going to have to get in touch with me. And these seminars run approximately every 2 months, and you get to see the full thing without all the rushing through. And there's multiple people asking questions as well. So next slide. I have fun with this. I tell people when I first meet them and they're thinking about doing business with me, I say, look, there's only 2 things that you need to be successful in real estate. The first one is an agent that is hyper local and knows the market. So essentially somebody that is an expert in the area. And second, a personality match. We just had to switch cameras. Mark's on top of things. I love it. So those 2 things, hyper local, expert, personality match. Now watch this. This is why I have fun with this. What if I was trying to sell you not a house, but a $20 bill? And I was selling you this crisp $20 bill. I put it out in front of you and I say, I want $25 for this $20 bill. What would you say? And the answer is, next slide. Oh, you got it up there already. So that's fine. Go back. Sorry. You would say, you're crazy. Why would I spend $25 for a $20 bill? What if I was selling you the $20 bill for $20? And they're obviously an even trade, and I'll make it a little bit better. My bill is nice and crisp, and you've got 20 wrinkled ones in your pocket, and maybe even $15 in ones and a bunch of change. Yeah, you'd like to get rid of that and have a nice, easy $20 bill. No problem with the sale. Now, here's where it gets interesting. What if I wanted to sell that property? See, I'm ultimately going real estate. I wanted to sell you the $20 bill for $19. If you're like me, you would say, how many of those you got? You're a sucker. I'll take them all. And you'd have a line of people saying, I'll buy that bill all day long. But here's the interesting part and why personality matters. What if I was selling this bill to you, and I know it's really small on your screen, it's highlighted in red, and I wanted to sell you the bill for $30, but your name was John Davis and your birthday was July 31st, 1963. Now look at the serial number of that bill, and you're going to understand why I'm asking the question. It's because that bill belongs to a John Davis who was born on that date because the serial number matches it. It's a unique match. And if you have an agent that is worth their weight in anything, their job is to market to find that one person that your home is worth the absolute top dollar it can be. Okay. And then they'll fight to find out some way to buy that home. So next slide. I call that, how do you find your John Davis? And now we're going to go into some marketing as to how you do that. First of all, it's a numbers game. Next slide. You put your house out for sale everywhere that you can. Okay. Yard signs, flyers, newspapers, websites. In the case of a good agent, they will automatically put it into the MLS. That's what we do, and we have the access to that, exclusively. So of course it goes into the MLS. And by the way, when you put something into the MLS, all these other websites that you're probably familiar with pull from the MLS automatically. It's what the agent does, the special agent does beyond that. So for example, I have my own website that has a lot of traffic per month. I've created that specifically because I want my sellers to have additional exposure. And my website has community news in it. I'm constantly talking about things that are related to home building. It's not just a site with listings because nobody will arrive to that. But when you have special content and it's mixed with the listings, people see your listings. Next slide. Okay. Don't start out wrong. If you're going to choose to sell the property by yourself, we call this a FSBO, okay, for sale by owner, then you do not want to start with a sign that looks like this. Notice at the bottom with the yellow arrow, it says no realtor fees. So again, you're trying to save 6%, right? I get that, and I respect it. If you're capable of doing it, you should go after that. But a buyer who's going to look at a sign like this automatically is going to start discounting out the 6%. And do you really want, the vast majority of buyers are represented by an agent. And do you really want to alienate all those people and actually have them shoot away from your listing by saying, hey, I'm not going to pay anybody anything. Basically what you're saying is I'm a cheapskate and I'll wait, months and months and months and not expose my house the way that I should so that I can, save 6%. And ultimately you're going to end up, well, I'll show you later how you can actually lose money in that pursuit. Next slide. Okay, it's all about the buyers. And the more people that know about your house, the faster it will sell and for the highest price. I usually have a little exercise here that I can't go into here, but essentially we're trying to find John Davis. Next slide. So I work with a number of other agents that aren't even necessarily at RE/MAX where I am. And these are wonderful people that have been in the business for a long time, and they have a lot of expertise that they themselves can share. It's about having that history, knowing what to do year after year that allows a professional to look more like Nordstrom than potentially your yard sale that you're going to do if you do it on your own. So the MLS, I told you, is the first place that everything gets placed, but it's the agent's book of business. I can't tell you how many times I have sold a home by first getting a listing and then realizing that through friends or prior clients that I have already potential buyers ready to purchase that home that, ultimately, give the seller an edge. The agents who are doing their job properly have a local network. So I don't take a listing and then, head into my office and do nothing but, emails and that. I meet other agents on a regular basis, and this creates a local network. And again, those agents may have somebody that's a buyer and they're not looking in the MLS, or they've missed something. And just through discussion and this network, a lot of sales are derived. And then let's go to the next slide. Standing out from the rest. This is an exercise that I unfortunately cannot show you on the slide deck here, but it's a fun exercise. I encourage you to come to the seminar either through a Zoom, which is what we're doing currently, or hopefully next year we'll be back to in-person seminars, and we're just going to go to the next slide instead. So, crafting your message. Now that you're getting marketing out to all the places, what do you want to say? And I really have to emphasize this. The reason why you bought your home is probably the reason why the next person is going to want your home as well. So if you bought it because it is steps away from a school, or it's really quiet and you're very close to shopping, etc., or there's the pool access has a much larger a sliding door or something. Whatever it is, that is probably the emphasis that should be put onto the text that goes along with all the wonderful pictures to attract your next buyer. All right, next slide. Every word and picture counts, okay? Today we're talking about how video is so wonderful. And even though my background is actually in professional video, and I do it for every one of my listings, I do have to tell you it's the photos that still take precedence. So here's a wonderful photo, very small, so hopefully you can see it. It is an actual photo from a listing a couple of years ago. I just couldn't pass it up. Here it is. Would you ever put that into your listing to attract people to come to that home? And I know what the answer is already, so you don't have to say it. And also the words. So whether they're misspellings, you can see some of that. Very limited times that you can see a property. Listen, if you've got your house on the market, you make yourself and the house available. And then there's also the choice to include or exclude photos. I can't tell you how many multi-million-dollar listings I've seen with photos of the garage. Now, let me tell you, if you've got 5 or 6 bedrooms and a beautiful family room and a kitchen and a pool, and why would you be showing the garage at all? Yet some of these agents and for sale by owner people do this too, put the wrong photos out. And they might actually be missing some really unique angles that tell a story. So words and pictures are incredibly important. Next slide. Let's talk about some showings. All right, so let's begin with the home preparation. When you invite somebody to come see your home, they're only going to take 5 to 10 minutes typically. Now, if you got a large home, obviously longer, but they don't have a ton of time. And believe it or not, it's taken them effort to coordinate a time so that everybody agrees and they show up. They've got to drive through traffic. There's a lot of effort that they've made up front. So when they get to the house, you better give them the best show you can. Curb appeal, number one. Refresh the plants that are out front. Add some colors, flowers. These are inexpensive things. Under $250 should do a world of good for curb appeal. You got to declutter. A house size is a house size, but if you've got a ton of statues and photos on every shelf, table, etc., it makes the house seem smaller. So the best that you can do, I know you're still living there, but the best you can do to hide all that stuff, and by the way, the best place to put that stuff is in the garage. People understand a garage is going to be messy and full. So if you can take that stuff and get it out of the living areas and put it in the garage, or even better yet, a storage area, the better you're going to have in the way of luck on selling the home. And there's some other things here. We'll go into more details, but I do want to move along because I'm running short on time. All right, next slide. All right, that slide might load. Next one after. We actually are a little behind on Mike. So basically, showings, you got to do them. So if somebody says, my client would really like to come at 4 o'clock, or they call you and say 2:15, and I got to be in and out of there you got to do the showing, even if it means canceling something in your life. You're on the market. Your number one goal, obviously, sell your home, move yourself along, and get some money. So it's going to be a little sacrifice from time to time. Don't make them bend to you. You have to bend to them. And the potential buyer is always right. Now, you do have to qualify them. And, as I said, go out of your way to make sure that you're doing the right things for them. Next slide. So during the show, I can't tell you, beautiful home, but there was a dog there, or there's a cat who had an accident a couple hours earlier, whatever it is. Smells are very important. So before you leave the house and the showing happens, I want to make sure that you use your nose and make sure you head out when it smells well. Ways to cover things up, plugins, we all know about that, candles. Vanilla in particular in the kitchen is a very nice way to entice people. And they always, that smell of vanilla works about home cooking and baking. Even if you don't do it, it works. Turn on all the lights. And by the way, even, putting in brighter bulbs than you typically have is a great idea. And then if you're doing the showing yourself, let them in, but let them experience the home without you yapping along. So, bring them into the house and say, listen, I'm going to go over here if you have any questions, and let them walk through the home by themselves. That's the best thing you can do, because if you're in the middle, they cannot see themselves in the home. Next slide. Negotiations, contract, and closing. I think at this point, we're about 30 minutes. So this is a great way for me to tease you. The seminar, again, the next one is on January 22nd. You go to my website at MiamiHal.com, and we will take you right through how to sign in and get a ticket, essentially, get a reserved seat for that. Right now, the January 11th one is, did I say 20? January 11th, 2022. And the first one is going to be in Zoom. I'm hoping all the seminars thereafter, we've returned to kind of normalcy, and we'll have live people talking to live people. It's something that I really miss. But besides that, I want to remind you that I am here to help you with your real estate dreams. The show is on every Thursday. I bring on experts to let you in on the wonderful world of real estate from all different angles. And in a couple of weeks, I am going to have a return visit from our county mayor, Daniela Levine Cava. I can't wait to ask her about how she's doing, how she sees the future of Miami. And that's always a lot of fun. So until next time, enjoy the week, and I will see you next Thursday.